Like, he might be able to as well, which is why I'm trying to get some time to do that so that I can finally use the fucking spells I paid for that I haven't had access to, because they would help us out a lot.
I think I still have a Lordy that I bought, I think, a year ago that I have not used. It's just been sitting there on my character sheet looking pretty.
And I'm like, I want to use that, I can't. So yeah, storyteller, we were talking about that. I am putting XP towards staff for the shelter. So I don't know how you want to make that happen, but it's going to happen.
Okay.
I mean, if you go by Bahari, Miriam probably knows a couple people.
Yes, most assuredly she does. You know, the funny thing is about the garden and all of its many flowers, its roots and barbs that spread throughout the entirety of the Midwest. They cross all strata of society. They crawl through the rank and file of most institutions. And thanks to the actions of the shelter, they cannot publicly nor privately, with any witnesses knowing what they're doing, worship. Many of the practices that they go through, the self-immolation and the pain that they bring on themselves to reach that heightened level of understanding of the world around them, has been denied them. The most succinct sort of torture, because they are denied the pleasure and the pain of their form of worship. They're just itching and all but gagging for the opportunity to make themselves of use, to worship in the way that they have grown accustomed to, which is through acts of service, through acts of charity, through acts of self-punishment, self-flagellation, through hours and hours of putting themselves through the paces, being in surgery for 13, 14 hours, even though the surgery, you know, they don't have to, there are lesser doctors available, by pulling those extra shifts because they can't do what they would normally have done. Pulling those extra hours on the beat, taking a bike beat instead of riding in the car, or sitting hours on end at the sergeant's desk at the local police station, or taking extra shifts on top of extra shifts as an Uber because they can't do or get to those moments of fellowship they formerly were able to.
Would they be Haven dots or merit dots? And I just put retainer.
Are you attempting to hire folks?
Well, do I have to in character hire them, or can I just say they were hired?
Oh yes, RP above all else. Definitely RP.
Okay, so but if I have to roleplay it, then where did the dots go? Is it Haven dots or retainer dots? Because I want them to be there permanently, and once I hire them, they're hired, except for, like, heaven forbid anything happened to them, but for the most part, they will be working in the background just to take some of the stress off Donnell and the others. Also, like, is it 1 dot per person, or can I just put 2 dots and then it'll be good enough staff?
Oh, independent mute. Sorry about that. Let's work on the mechanical logistics over the next couple of days.
Okay, bet. Like I said, that's why I haven't been spending my XP. I have 27 currently sitting, so I want to bump some of that towards the shelter itself. But other than that, I don't think I have any questions. I was also explaining to them about my theories as to who I can ask to get my other things met.
Right.
So that I can actually use those rituals now.
Use what rituals? You don't have any rituals. You're not even a real Tremere.
I suppose.
Well, you know, Tremere in name, Kadif in practice. It all works out.
Right. It's fine. It's totally fine.
I mean, it's kind of like being a non-practicing Catholic. They say once you're a Catholic, you're a Catholic, so it doesn't really matter whether you say you're Catholic or not.
Well, yeah, but everybody has their own perception of what that actually means.
But yeah, just a heads up for tonight. I am working on a paper in the background, so if I go quiet and don't respond, just yell at me. But
Okay.
nobody mostly knows what my plans are, so it should be easy.
Easy.
Right?
Perfect. Then we'll get a giant bag and throw Miriam in it and run away.
Yeah.
I didn't say it was a good idea. It's just what she has in her mind. What's the worst that can happen?
Let's find out, shall we? Oh, this is yeah. Yeah and yeah. So yeah. And after that rousing speech, how was everybody?
Mostly stressed between work and school, but it's fine.
I am doing well. I have a dog.
I noticed. What made you jump wagon to my side of the pet market with dogs and turtles and, you know, instead of cats like everybody else?
Oh, it wasn't my decision.
I see.
I did not find out that I was getting a dog until last night when my parents came home and said, "Hey, we're getting a dog tomorrow."
No.
And I said, "What?"
Well, you know, at least they gave you notice.
Surprise!
But now that I have this puppy, I love it to death and I would not train it for anything in the world.
No, understandable. Understandable. As a lifelong dog person, is the few years that I lived without a dog, it was surprisingly difficult. Like, you get accustomed to certain things. You get accustomed to certain behaviors throughout the house, and it's funny how taking one piece out or changing one facet of your actual home makes all the difference in the world. I'm sure every pet owner feels much the same way, and you know how it is when you come home and your pets are your pets, and you get accustomed to their sounds, their noises, and how they warm the house.
Yes.
So, taking in, everyone remembers where we were in media res, stuck between a moment, the forces of the world encroaching once more upon the peace and solace of being home at the shelter, the nefarious plans of other kindreds coming to some semblance of fruition, or being interrupted by the shelter simply being the shelter. So the question stands: are there any questions, suggestions, hypotheses, or corners we need to round off? All right, sounds like a plan. Silence is always our moment of quietude and our approval that we are reading from the same book and that we have a grasp on where these heroes of our hearts are, where the coterie chaos has accumulated. And so, without much further ado, I'd like to say and offer my thanks, my appreciation, and, for lack of a better word, for all true definition, my adoration of your talents and your skills. These characters and your talent have made Wednesday a reprieve. All play is important to me, and with this being the foundation of most of the other play that I've engaged with, especially when it comes to World of Darkness, this is without a shadow of a doubt a foundational moment, these moments that we share here. So thank you, and thank you, and thank you. With my heartfelt thanks extended, and with all of the chaos and trouble of the characters' actions laying before us, I'd like to say that this is officially Soup City Sins Season 17 Episode 5 of The Door and Its Step. When we last left our coterie on this beautifully cool yet surprisingly temperate early fall Chicago night, after their sojourn across the border into Milwaukee, into Wisconsin, into places where angels fear to tread, they have safely returned, due to no small part of the wolf pack, due in no small part to their ability to work together and surmount any of the many landmines that lay ahead of them. Having returned, a little worse for wear physically, a little worse for wear mentally, a little worse for wear spiritually, knowing what has glommed onto them. Not only Blue, who has been freed from his servitude to the Castigliones, but the presence that exists, that persists within Miriam. The weight of a small bit of an action, waiting for the best moment to strike, waiting for the most opportune situation. And the ramifications of that, and a small mind and filled with impatience, presenting this moment where we are. Sophia safely sliding into the called for and assigned vehicle with one of Zal's men. Initially sent as a sign that Zal was the power to passive-aggressively ensure that Zal was respected as the soon-to-be full pater of the Hecata of Chicago. Veronica, Sophia's cool and new manservant, standing as a body man between the security vehicle, its men, and the car in which Sophia is safely ensconced. Lucio moving to intercept, offering his body and his strength as another loggerhead to keep them from closing and doing something as stupidly aggressive as acting as their better judgment dictates. Hestia stepping from the front door of the shelter amidst this scene, watching it unfold, deciding what is the best course of action ahead of them, considering this is yet another potentially violent moment happening on the grounds directly in front of the shelter. and knowing that the shelter's position in the neighborhood, even after all these years, is in fact very precarious. The neighbors don't want it there. It is an eyesore. It is a sign that they are not as wealthy as they would like to be, nor will they ever be. It is a sign that but for the grace of God, there go them as well. And they want it removed. They want their property values to immediately skyrocket so they can sell their apartments and their condos for 5 to 10 to 25 times what they purchased it for. They want to be free of the signs of poverty that are always no more than a stone's throw from their backyards and front stoops. And Miriam, the warm, nearly scalding water of the shelter's plumbing, bracing their skin and bringing what semblance of life they are able back to them, removing the dirt, the dust, the grime of their last recent night's adventures. A plan being concocted as the water cascades about them. And as the water heater reaches roughly 1/15 of its limit for the next few hours, we dive in with the characters in action, starting with Sophia. It is impossible to not know that Paolo here is in fact a sign that Zal is rubbing in the fact that you will bend the knee, you will kiss the ring, you will be a good, upstanding servant, because after all, they can reach out and touch you whenever they choose. It's the modern example of downright Machiavellian. It is childish, it is immature, and it is far too effective in the fact that this lesser-blooded Hakata feels that they can lord anything over a Rossellini. It is that this lesser-blooded family member of unbeknown provenance feels that because of them double-dipping, back-dealing, and being beneath anyone's notice, that they are far superior. And it's a rankling sort of thing. The pride definitely having been strong and bruised cannot tolerate.
Well, clearly this has to be answered.
So as Veronica and Lucio do whatever it is that the hired help and muscle do, what is it that you are contemplating or preparing to do inside the safe confines of the vehicle provided for you? Paolo, sitting across, his eyes glazed over, is only one in the presence of God. Could be. The adoration clearly on his face. The slightly senses-addled staring.
Well, it's very nice that Zal has given me a gift, so I will suck it dry. After telling Vittoria in Italian to teach the others respect.
But of course, you hear from outside the car, she closes the door, leaving you and Paolo alone. While Lucio, standing where you are, just a hair's breadth in front of her, between the oncoming men who have every intentions of following their edicts. They came together, they leave together, their assignment was clear. And as you raise a hand to remind them that no, we're not doing this, they come on anyway. The passenger moving further to your left, which is his right, to circle around so that he might have a better advantage of getting to that door and dragging Paolo away from whoever's inside.
So then it's pretty clear that they're gonna attack soon, right?
It's pretty clear they're going to drag Paolo out of there and do as much indirect harm as they possibly can. You've seen the type. You grew up with the type. The walking down the hall in your high school who would purposely take a step so that they would brush through you on their way about them. That incidental violence that they could explain, hey, I wasn't doing anything.
Lucio's going to intercept whichever one is moving closest to Sophia and Victoria, but he's not going to attack until he sees either Victoria attack or one of them pull out a gun or some other weapon. At which point he is going to soaring leap right onto one of them and bite down.
Concise and directly feeding into his new warmed sensibilities. After all, you are positive that men such as this, it's like having that cheeseburger after that night out. There's that fat, greasy protein that makes it all the better. The hangover not as rough because you have that nice succulent piece of meat grilled to perfection, loaded with cheese, and just absolutely horrible for the arteries, but great for soaking up all of that previous night's carousing. Not that you're looking forward to it, but let's be honest, you're looking forward to it. As you're watching the men and Victoria size each other up, and the door closed on the limo, the town car that is sitting there, there are certain things that as a Chicagoan come natural. That's knowing that when someone says, I'll be right back, or hang on, let me go to the trunk, that you know, one, they shouldn't make it to the trunk, and two, you shouldn't be there when they get back. This is that situation for you, because as you step out of the shelter, it is clear what is in the offing. This is the first finger snaps and hip gyrations of the dance of violence that is everywhere. What is it that you are attempting to do?
Do I have okay, so I can see both guys. Then can I tell which one Lucio's kind of heading towards?
Roughly, yes.
Then I'm gonna take the other one, and prevent him from stepping away from the vehicle. Full speed behind him, knife to his spine. I wouldn't move if I were you.
I see. So we need several things to happen. Starting with a die roll. Victoria's moving on a DC of 3. They're also moving roughly at a DC of 3. So in Hesh's case, it would be a dexterity intimidation with the bonus for your celerity, because there's no hiding the fact that she was by the door and suddenly she is not. There is no way any person not gifted with the embodiment of Jesse Owens or anyway, she becomes the Flash. And Lucia, would you be so kind to go ahead and roll your strength plus brawl with your bonus of potence, because that is very much what's happening. As they make a move, you make a move, Victoria's making a move, all of these things are happening roughly at the exact same moment, because everyone has the idea that, you know, whoever hits first hits best.
Adding potence as extra dice or as a flat success?
Extra dice.
Okay.
And while that ballet of violence is beginning. The first few chords are being strummed. The water reaches its penultimate temperature. It is somehow in the few moments of lingering beneath its stream has washed away most of the dirt and grime. But a thought, a terrible, terrible thought, one that will not go away, not quite as pernicious as the twirling red dress always in your periphery, or worse, that feeling of emptiness, not having that presence there, not having that feel there. And the worst thing is, while you only had it for little more than a night, that beating heart, that thump, 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 that responded to your mood, that responded to your touch, that warmth, that for once being near didn't inspire a hunger in you, are things that you miss. It's an emptiness there. You can't quite put your finger on the why of it. Maybe the human mind be growing accustomed to anything, surviving anything if given enough time. And you'd grown accustomed to that presence always there. That feeling of that first blush of love always there. That feeling that you were never truly ever alone, always there. And the silence and the power of the shelter, it creates a vacuum that causes all sorts of thoughts to bombard. So tearing your way from the shower, you find your pad. Not your small travel pad, but the large, the 18 by 24, the one that you have done charcoals and pastels, the big pieces that, well, won't ever truly be tattoos, but are no less exorcisms of what you are feeling. And you begin working. Would you be so kind as to go ahead and roll your wits plus craft for me, Miriam?
Absolutely.
Now here's the thing. While all of those things are happening outside of the vehicle, while all of those strings of fate are being intertwined and crisscrossed and double backed on based on the actions of the coterie inside the vehicle, Sophia is alone with Paolo and has already made up their mind to train and try what to take from them, to appreciate the gift that was so lovingly deposited on your doorstep. The question now is, will Sophia actually attempt to not empty Paolo?
Nope.
I was hoping that the monster that Sophia is had a moment of reprieve, because while the frenetic action outside of the vehicle masked the absolute fight for life, because the Hecata are known by most, because they do such a good job of hiding it, taking through, slicing open arteries or feeding on those already half gone. In this moment, Paolo isn't half gone. He is looking and staring into the face of the most divine energy he has met in a very, very long time, if ever. All of the myths and stories from his youth having been fulfilled. Here is Venus, here is Aphrodite, here is a goddess from Mount Olympus itself, and he's willing to supplicate, to prostrate himself before her, but then her teeth unleashes the full heat, the full fury and anger of an awakened volcano. He begins struggling, he begins fighting, he begins crying out as if his soul was being seared, which in this moment it is. And the worst, most troubling aspect of it, while he would never, if he survives, ever willingly give himself over to this moment, as painful as it is, as soul-searing as it is, underneath it is a small little voice of the kiss itself, the magic that comes with being a kindred. Underneath all of that, there is a portion of him that says, but you liked it, didn't you? And that's the scariest aspect of it. Because while he literally sees his life fleeting before him, there's a small whispering voice. And there's no easy thing to watch a thing die. It's not an easy thing to be the cause of something dying, even for kindred who've done it hundreds and hundreds of thousands of times. Up until the point of no return, there is still that animal connection with the deceased. There is still that natural empathy of watching the lights disappear from behind someone's eyes. And the terror and the fury and furor of his attempt to hang on to that last little bit of life strikes a chord that only something so understanding of death can understand. As the lights behind his eyes go out and you feel what is him slip through the sieve between this world and the next, you sense and feel the weight of him slip across the veil into the Shadowlands. There is a small niggling portion of yourself that is still very much that human animal empath. And that weight is not a small thing to consider. That weight is not a small thing to feel. Because you can measure it in the seconds ticking by as the lights grow dimmer and dimmer and his struggles cease and his hand goes limp. And right at the moment where your heart is swelling with that ghost of a memory of that empathy, his body evacuates itself. And speaking of shitting the bed and one's pants, the chaos of battle is something that the coterie has grown accustomed to. And the chaos of strength to strength, arm to arm, and people willing to put up to get up is what the coterie has grown accustomed to. So as the passenger moves in a flanking position, Lucio, understanding that there is no way that this is not going to end badly for someone, he moves and his teeth strike home. And then electric jolt of the kiss begins washing through his victim and him. There's a blur past him as his teeth and his fangs sink home of Hestia. It can only be Hestia. Hopefully it's only Hestia. It's not Damien or some other speed demon. But all the same, the driver stops in his tracks long enough for Victoria to land her blow. He immediately, instinctually beginning to raise his hands as if there's a gun or a weapon. Whatever is exchanged between him and Hestia fading away all too quickly as Victoria moves. Not as fast as Hestia. Not as fast as Lucio has found that he can be. But far faster than the driver had expected. And if it was Silvio, if it was Arsenio, hell, if it was almost any other entity that they had grown accustomed to, the speed and the violence would have been more of the same. But watching her move strikes a chord of worry, because this is someone with whom you have no history. This is someone with whom you have no actual connection. And yet, the sound of the driver's cracking ribs and his scream of pain is troubling. Not enough to stop Lucio from sinking fangs. Not enough to stop Hestia from having her blade at the ready. Not enough to change the course of any of these men's lives. But it's still troubling.
still going in the same order, or is it whatever?
It is whatever. It is a fracas. It is a free for all. Free for all.
Lucio is going to be drinking his fill then.
His fill or his beast fill?
His beast's fill. He's going to. He's a hungry cowpoke and he has a aggravated damage he still needs to heal.
Excellent.
Hess hearing the crunch of the bones winces softly, but somebody's got to be left alive. You got to leave the messenger, I guess. And she speaks up to be heard by both Victoria and the man. If you don't want to not make it home tonight, I suggest you get in the car. Last chance. I'm going to put all the intimidation she can manage into that, especially with the pokey of the knife.
There's no real road needed because escape is the first thing that comes to mind. Because while breaking a floating rib is surprisingly easy to do, snapping it in half in such a way that it pokes through the skin and only held in place by the well-crafted suit jacket is another matter entirely. And that pain is excruciating. Not quite as much as, having a tendon severed in your knee, but it is very, very close. The shock of it was enough to act as the perfect barb. He would be willing to tell you anything at this moment. He would be willing to, have his faith tested and found wanting. Because his eyes immediately goes to Lucio's back, who is all but bowed in half, holding his partner, Paolo's little brother. And his thoughts are for himself. The fear wafting off of him in that moment seems to give Victoria strength. And as Hestia nudges with the blade, presenting an opportunity to escape, Victoria pushes him back so that the knife sinks in. A sacrificial dagger that Hestia keeps at the ready. It isn't very long, but it is very sharp. It isn't something that's going to puncture through the entirety of a person, but it is sharp enough to cleanly slip between the rib. It is sharp enough to sever tendon and cut through the soft tissues connecting bones. It is designed to bloodlet. It is designed to cut through nearly anything that is not steel or iron. Some aluminum if it's reinforced, and definitely not tungsten. But needless to say, it is a tool that is kept at the ready. Hestia's people opener is very, very handily made and well kept. So as Victoria pushes the already fearful man, he staggers back, not initially in pain from the blade, but his rib. What the fuck? Ah! As the blade sinks in, you realize that at Hestia's height, it is not a mortal wound. It is one that's going to bleed freely and leave a scar, but it's not a mortal wound. It is just pain for pain's sake.
But there's a small problem.
There always is. Welcome to the coterie.
Hestia is at 3 hunger right now.
Yes. And having that hungry, hungry voice always in her head. She's been hungrier. She's been ravenous before, and this is not ravenous. This is definitely hungry. This is definitely more than I can eat. And that voice is always there. The question is, does Hestia give it release, having that splatter of blood across her fingers? Does Hestia give it release, being at her height? The blood that flows from the wound is very much near nose height. Does Hestia give in, hearing the slobbering, draining of the other? Because what Lucio is not quite mindless, but is definitely invested in emptying that particular vessel of all of its life juices. And there's a happening close enough to be heard, and while he has his back to you with his height, you can't exactly see, but Hestia knows, her beast knows.
The thing is, even though she's really hungry now, she's a consensualist, and that is the end of a lot of things for her, so she is going to run her big girl pants and yank the knife free and like practically shove the guy back into the car so that she's not further tempted.
As you are a baker, you fix desserts, so you have fixed enough batter that you know when and when not you can sample the pot, the spoon. In this situation, Hestia, the character, Hestia in this moment has splattered ready to eat batter across her fingers. Does she do the absent-minded licking it away, or does she resist the urge and go to the sink to wash herself?
No, that she... No, she's going to like lick her hands clean. There's only so much restraint.
And so is Lucio slobbers and samples. He does all of that, all of those annoying things that you have seen sommeliers do on every movie of every show, every cooking reality show that you've ever seen. He does the full inhalation, he does the swishing, he does the tasting stuff. He doesn't spit, he swallows it all, but he does all of the things that add to the flavor of the blood that he's ingesting. And you can tell that he and his beast are having a high old time. And just as that is really sinking in, that you all in front of the shelter, the town car stops rocking. Before you were busy with the guard and with Victoria and trying to keep your composure, but as you absently lick your index finger and the blade, you realize that the town car was rocking. It was moving. It was the sort of thing that you've seen on, countless other shows and read countless, if the town car is rocking, don't come a knocking. And it's definitely an image that sits there with you, because that was clearly something that probably, but it's over now, whatever it was. Hopefully, Sophia's alive, or as close to it as she has ever come. And if not, well, there goes that. And speaking of there goes that, we pull back from the chaos, literally of the scrum there in front of the coterie. There in front of the coterie's haven. There in front of the shelter where people have already considered it as the number one reason why the property values are as low as they are. We take our gaze through the shelter, through the hidden door in the office, up into Miriam's suite of rooms. Now, the thing that stands out mostly to us as we come swooping through the door, invisibly watching what is taking place, is that we all know that Miriam has been and is an artist of some acclaim. She has managed to, in a few moments previously, create pieces of art that you will be proud to have on your skin. Pieces of art that you would be proud to have on your wall. But in this moment, the human psyche rebels at things that are too human, but not. Almost human and too close to human triggers a fear in us to varying degrees. But even those who are wholly immune, at least from acting on it, there is that disturbance and something so very, very lifelike. And while the coterie were giving vent and are giving vent to their slightly darker impulses, here before us, strewn across the floor in a frenzy of activity, are works of art that have clearly had life poured into them. There's a true to life, nearly full-size rendering of Nash. There's a nearly full-size rendering of the presence that lives and persists inside her. There are several others, images, each and every one, faces that she's seen, people that she's come across and don't quite remember when or where. There's her mom and dad, but she knows it's not her mom and dad. She views it as mom and dad, but they're not hers. She can't quite fathom why. And each of these several pieces of art are so lifelike that at any moment they look and feel as if they could step up off the page, materializing the rest of their bodies as they do so, stepping from the past, the phantasmal imagination into reality at any moment. The eyes all but twinkle with the gathering of the little light here in the suite of rooms. It's as if she has managed to summon into these pieces of paper the very spirit of the things that she sketched. You can almost see them breathing. They're not. She's had that experience before and she knows that intimately. But she's sure that in another story, that in another moment, that these pieces of art would live of their own volition. Realizing what she's done, realizing what she's wrought, where does that place her?
It leaves her conflicted, really. But she also recognizes that these don't quite belong to her. They're hers, but there's just something different about them. They're normally a sketch is a sketch. Quick, yes. She can do it well, yes, but these are near masterpieces that she has poured everything into. So she is going to gather them up nice and neat and carry them out and down to the infirmary.
Dressed as she is for leisure, for rest, for lounging, invisible to those not immediately in her circle of trust, or at least circle of association. She moves through the main floor of the shelter as if it is what it is for her. She is, in fact, at home, though the shelter, the inhabitants of the community of the shelter, those homeless and fleeting staff members, don't quite know that the members of the staff that come and go, the old security chiefs, Mr. Sorochi, Miss Green, Mr. Darcy, they don't know that the coterie lives in the abandoned hospital portion. They've never known that. But seeing Miriam move like a ghost amongst them causes certain catches of breath, she passes. She moves into the infirmary that has seen the possession of several different spirits, that has seen the birthing of Forsapulas into the world, that has seen Sorochi's child come into existence, that has seen the final eve of Lucio's half-brother. This infirmary, this medical bay has seen a lot of activity. They've lost members of the community. They've almost lost members of the staff. This place has its own feel, its own aura to it, its own natural inherent room sounds that are very much like a church. Because people still remember that night where that woman high on PCP shattered Amalia's arm, where that woman that was high on PCP ruined Donnell's legs and nearly put him into the grave, where that woman that was high on PCP nearly killed Mr. Sorochi and Miss Green. They remember those moments, amongst many others. And so seeing Miriam looking very, very ghost-like causes certain emotions to run through the crowd. You can hear people rushing off to get Donnell. You can hear people rushing off to get Amalia. Hell, you even heard some idiot say they're gonna go get Sebastian. For all of his effort, for all of his energies poured into this place, he is still very much just a newly near adult. He is not of legal majority. But even now, what help they can manage is the what help that exists here. And they are off and running. You hear the tremors and the worry. As you make your way into the infirmary. Back outside. Sophia, you've had better. But then again, there's always better. There's no small amount of joy and no small amount of you with what you've done. The message is clearly sent, but humans are so frail. There's something so disgusting about their final moments. And as he lays there, moldering almost instantaneously, life ill spent, what crosses Sophia's mind watching Paolo's face, empty of everything, stare up at her?
At this point, probably not a whole lot, at least related to him. She's got to assert her dominance. This was one way to do it, though it's just, kind of a comma in the sentence that needs to be issued.
It's in the massive cooling meat that is Paolo lays there. And the message that she would like to have sent, how is she going to ensure that it's properly postmarked?
She will slide out of the car, wiping the blood off her mouth with the back of her hand, and look and see if there are any survivors.
Timing is everything. Stepping out of the car, the door still open, you see Lucio's back bent and bowed as he drinks down the last few moments of the individual in his arms. If not for the very real public spectacle of it all, if not for the very real, I didn't think he had it in him, of it all, it would be life affirming knowing that you have such readily monstrous members at your disposal. Glancing to your right towards the follow car, you see Victoria standing there, not quite sure whom to most assist, because Hestia is standing next to the car behind you, the SUV, licking the still misting warmth of blood from her blade and fingers as she takes in the scene. Her eyes aren't quite pie-eyed and dilated like a drug user, but it is very close. You know what that look is. It is just enough to give you a taste and not enough to give you a full enjoyment of it. That's what has her tongue feverishly working to clean the blade in her fingertips. Inside the SUV, person who is labored breathing, fumbling with keys, instead for having forgot that it is a push start.
Sophia will say in Italian, "Bring him."
And Victoria moves, takes a step towards Hestia and the driver's side door of the vehicle. While at this point, the last few drops, the last few warm spurts of blood reach the back of Lucio's throat. The cooling corpse in his hand is older than a child, younger than a full adult, a young man already on his way to a path of nothingness. Nothing but destruction could come from living the lifestyle that he clearly is. And he falls if you let him go to the ground before you. What is it that you do when hearing more bits of home? Because while your mother didn't speak Italian, your father did. And every once in a while, a few Italian phrases would come from his lips. Nothing that you could ever really put your finger on. But it definitely sounds like mid-coastal Italian. Something not quite from Sicily or the actual coast. Something a little more in, something higher up in the mountains. Something close, but not quite.
Once Lucio is finished with his meal, he will drop the body to the ground and turn to inspect the scene, see if anyone else needs help.
Sophia stands by the open door. There is clearly a corpse inside, and the way that the legs are splayed, there is nothing living that could ever fall in that direction, and in that quite manner, discarded as it is. The scent hasn't, of course, escaped the inside of the car just yet, but there is no way that whatever that person was is still living. To Lucio's right, past Sophia, towards the SUV, where the driver is fumbling with keys, even though that particular model of SUV is a push start. Hestia stands on the other side of the vehicle, and you only see her from the top of her head, but she's clearly busy doing something. Her head's gently bobbing up and down as it works at whatever it is she's working at. Victoria's moving in that direction, and there's something even darker than the simple taking of a life on the wind.
So then, seeing that the situation's under control, Lucio will instead drag the corpse in front of him closer to the shelter so they can dispose of it later.
Hearing the phrases exchanged between, directed at Victoria from Sophia, it's not any language that Hestia knows, but Victoria has a set to her shoulders and she's moving towards the vehicle. The blood is enough to stir the hunger instead of satiate it. It's just a light little bit of nothing.
Hess interposes herself between Victoria and the driver, holding the knife up. I said he could leave, and she knows that she was sent by Sophia, so she wants to make sure that Sophia can hear. I said he could leave. This is my shelter. We already did enough damage. He can leave.
Well, he is going to leave. He's going to deliver a message for me.
He can take the message from the inside of the car. He's bleeding already.
No, I want that car. He can have this car.
Does Hestia step back as this conversation is happening? Because Victoria is still moving forward. She hasn't taken a active bracing of herself for an overtly offensive action, but she is still walking forward. Her gaze meeting Hestia's, her chin resting against her collar.
What has she look like backing up off a ghoul? Please, no. Like, girl. Fine, whatever, but he's getting to leave. She opens the car door. Please step out. I promise you won't get hurt any further.
That is not your promise to make. You said he can leave. Sophia said he can leave. Miss Rossi said he can leave. No one said he would not be hurt. And she grabs him by his ear as if he's an unruly child and begins leading him forward. The blood leaking as he steps past Hestia, because it's either that or get stabbed by Hestia.
Tess takes a fortifying but unnecessary breath, slamming the car door behind her. Make it quick, please. I have to clean up this fucking mess. They already are trying to run us out of here. This isn't helping.
As the survivor is brought forward, Sophia will point at the pavement at her feet.
Without much muscle behind it, though it's clear that she has far more than she needs, Victoria forces him to his knees.
Sophia will lean over, looking in his eyes, stop long enough to press her bloody cold lips to his forehead. Will then back up and look in his eyes down at him again and say, "Tell your mistress I accept her tribute."
Tribute, yeah.
She will, in Italian, tell Vittoria to get the keys. They will go check out this SUV.
Watching this happen, Lucio's been around Hestia long enough to have heard some of the stories of her youth. Hestia has first-hand memory of her youth. One of the many tossed off bon mots, one of the many facts of life that were drummed into her from a very early age. It's a sad dog don't wag its own tail. And in a situation where you are leaking your life's essences from being stabbed or shot, or being faced with what seems like overwhelming odds, where death is a very real probability, not just a possibility. It is a sad, cowardly individual that would not put up resistance, would not attempt to fight, not attempt to do everything in their power to fight cling to life, to willingly go along with being shoved into a vehicle filled with the stench of death, to willingly be forced to one's knees. It's hard not having a immediate revulsion for that individual. It is hard not having one's stomach turn with the idea of that being allowed to continue existing. And the trick of it all is you're not sure whether it is your conscious mind or your beast that whispers such things, that has that disgusting word echo through your mind.
Keith gritted. She stows her blade, walking towards Lucio, putting the other two kind of behind her, like, whatever, I can't deal with this shit right now. She goes to Lucio, hey, so I came out here because I had good news, but apparently it's more drama out here and more bullshit. Lovely. I ran the city. But anyway, Arsenio is alive and he stopped by earlier today.
Did he? That's good to know.
Yeah.
Where is he?
They didn't say. They said that they recognized him and said that he said not to worry about something and then that things would get better soon. And seemed in well spirits and happy enough, so that's good to hear. Oh crap, another body. Come on. Fuck. Can't we stick that one in the car with the other one before it leaves so we don't have to deal with it?
As you say that, the town car is easing away from the curb while Sophia and Victoria head toward the SUV and begin inspecting the portions of it that are not blood soaked. And while Sophia and Victoria inspect the SUV and Lucio and Hestia catch up on some of the actions of the rest of the world, Miriam, would you be so kind as to roll your manipulation plus occult for me, please?
Manipulation and cult, what you said?
Yeah, Miriam. The entire time that you've been with this coterie, keeping you safe, and unlike the other members of the faith, unlike the other members of the Lillans and the Laka and the Lillans, and unlike the other Baha'i, unlike the with and rather than you have been able to practice your faith, though for you it's not really a faith, it's more of a belief, and you understand how it works and it betters you, so forth and so on. There's been the understanding that there's a cost for doing business. There's been the understanding that with the right application, one can appease, if not completely banish spirits from their malfeasant actions against the living. Everything has been pushed and shoved and nudged, and some of the ephemeral information that those others have has boiled down to there's a cost, and if it is paid, then you buy yourself some grace. And part of that grace that is set there before you all has been the ownership, the true attunement to the shelter. And you've seen it. You've felt it. You have been there when sacrifices that needed to be made were made. And the power and the peace that has come from those things have changed the ebb and flow of everything else. So as you, phantasmal like a modern rendition of Miss Havisham, dressed in your robe, with your fingers still slightly stained from the charcoal and pastels that you use to create these master works of your craft, set them down. And in your rampant gaze, you take in the environment around you and realize that these images, this work, this living work, is a masterwork, and it came from you. That your energies are involved with it as much as all of those others. Sacrifice has to be valuable. It doesn't have to be a life. You're not sure how the thought comes across, but you know that with the right impetus and the right, by breaking the bulb, and as it flares up, it will cause a fire. But in the center of the floor, it shouldn't cause any additional harm to the infirmary. And the sacrifice of the energies poured into that artwork should very well offer you directly, and by extension the coterie, some peace from the chaos that is swirling and bombarding the world around them. And you dare. People will assume that pacifism is an act of cowardice. But you know that your attempt at maintaining life, at protecting life, is anything but. The easier thing, and the part of you that you hate to really put voice or thought to, is that pulling that trigger when it was that hoary, hairy beast or yourself was the easiest thing that you've done. To consciously want to end another being's existence comes easy. It is an act of strength. It is a dedication to the inestimable value of life that has you operating with the idea of protecting it as often as you can. And that strength and that mindset is what sets fire to the artwork. It's that understanding of the sacrifice that causes you to do a most risky thing. The fire starts easily enough. The paper, the stock, well crafted though it is, thick enough to withstand everything short of actual full-on oil painting, it still goes up all too quickly. And all is right with the world initially until you begin to hear that cry, that sob, because the voice isn't able to raise, the voice isn't able to wail, help me. You remember that voice. It stayed with you for weeks after leaving Harold Washington and knowing what was happening on that roof. Help me. hearing that voice and knowing that there is energy dying, there's energy being churned and turned into fuel, is there anything that Miriam is attempting to do? Or is she going to stand and watch this offering ascend into the rafters of the infirmary? Is she going to stand and assure that this burning is complete?
Yes, stand and watch. She is resolved.
While outside, the SUV comfortably seats 7, though with Lucio's height is clearly more like 5. The SUV is outfitted to clearly do more than simply get from point A to point B. It's climate controlled, it's well appointed, the seats are heated, and the idiots left their phone in the center console, synced with the vehicle's dash and OnStar. And as the town car eases away, a little wobbly, what is Sophia and Victoria doing? What is Hestia and Lucio doing? Realizing that the town car is going around the corner, head back to whence it came, wherever that might be. Noticing that Sophia and Victoria are at the SUV.
Just to be clear, the town car is being driven away by the survivor, right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Well, now we have to clean this up before either the cops show up or somebody comes outside. And I hope you realize we still have cameras on the block.
Are they pointed here?
The whole block. So that's kind of a problem. A little bit. Remember we used to have what's her face technological Nosferatu chick from the Hounds who would like wipe shit?
Yes, I remember.
We don't have that anymore because remember we're not technically Hounds anymore, as the Wolfpack so wonderfully pointed out. You and
They risk.
I do, so if you have any questions for her, you might want to go ask her now. The thing is, we need to go get Miriam because she's still possessed, and I don't know what the fuck's going on. I don't want to leave her alone in there, but we still have to figure out what the fuck we're gonna do with the other thing. What's going on?
And we still need to get Vivi.
Yeah, and I don't think that's where Sophia was planning on going, so like I said, y'all might want to sort that whole situation out.
Alright, I'll ask what Sophia's plan is then. And Lucio will head over to Sophia.
They'll probably be in the SUV tittering to each other in Italian and seeing if she can get that phone open, because I'm sure it's full of at least useful numbers.
It shouldn't be too hard. Most of the time they have simple passwords. It is, how old do you think they might be? Born in 2000, maybe born in 93? I'll just try them all. We should begin to
Just Hard to tell with Praxis.
They clearly were not trained. As you make it to the SUV and they're talking back and forth, and you see, here's the thing that you never quite get used to. Other kindred and humans are so technologically fixated. It is hard not seeing Victoria as the "you damn kid, always on your phone," because she is literally talking through the rearview mirror towards Sophia, who's already in the back seat, who at the same time she's texting on a phone where it looks like she's texting. Her thumbs are just going a mile a minute. She's click, 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 click. So Lucio eerily stands at the window watching this. Stands there.
He will knock on the window.
Sophia will push the button to make it go down if it goes down in Lucio's presence.
It does. There's a curious doubt that crosses her mind as it does so.
While they're doing that, Hess is trying to figure out how best to get the body inside without it being seen.
Would you be so kind as to go ahead and roll wits plus stealth? And while that roll is happening, as Lucio stands outside the window that goes very much down, and there's a certain whiff that he recognizes, as well as a certain distance clearly established by Sophia being in the vehicle and him being outside of it.
We have bodies to clean up. We have a neonate to rescue from a chantry. And we have 2 possessed kindred in our coterie. So what exactly is our plans for the rest of the evening?
I cleaned my body up. I have other arrivals to attend to.
So you'll be off on your own then?
It looks that the way.
Best of luck to you then. And Lucio will just walk away then.
Turning away from the vehicle and looking back towards Hestia, you've seen horrors. You've experienced the touch of true darkness, the absence of all semblance of light. But what you see before you is nearly unspeakable in the imagination. You have never seen, even with having watched as she prepare a body to go into the crematorium styled furnace in the morgue beneath the hospital. This takes the cake. You literally turn as Hestia is folding the arm in such a way that it collapses in on itself. The cracking of bones is indescribably loud, because you've never seen Hestia so callously nor carelessly handle a body, a once living human. Stunned, you watch as the next arm is folded in on itself as if it is a dress shirt being put on display at some retail store, Kohl's or Ross or whatever, Target even, as the t-shirts are folded and placed on tables. But watching her do so, there is a monstrous pragmatism to it, because as small as she is, as strong as she is, there's a certain awkwardness that comes from lifting and carrying dead weight. Not that it's undoable, it just makes it difficult, and the skin slides and bones shift, causing it to usually make a larger mess than is necessary if you try to do so by yourself. The pragmatism that you watch as Hestia displays is chilling, because she literally folds the arms in, then the legs, then double folds the waist, cracking the pelvis and bringing the head down on itself and squashing it all down so that it is a solid, near cube-like structure that she handily lifts and begins carrying.
Lucio has a brief flashback to an old conversation he had with Hestia about not wanting to be a monster. And in this moment, he's starting to feel like he's failed in that pursuit, but he's gonna push that brief thought aside and speak up to Hestia. She's not coming with us tonight. Apparently she has her own business to deal with, so we're on our own. And it looks like, for now, that means Miriam's going to be staying possessed.
Are we surprised, though?
No.
Are we? She basically just used us to protect her. And then teach whoever this is she's gonna start a fight with a fucking lesson. Granted, I was mostly protecting the shelter, but yeah, we just threw in our lot with her completely just now. Lovely. Anyway, let's take this inside and go check on Miriam, because I have a really fucked up feeling that leaving her by herself is a problem. And then, like I said, Sophia obviously has their little homegirl sister servant person to protect them, so we don't have to play bodyguard tonight.
Good. Then we can take care of our own issues.
There's something unnerving as you two calmly sit and discuss the plan, the plot, the steps moving forward, as Hestia is literally holding a cubed former corpse. The splatter and the smudging and the staining of her hand from the fat and the blood and the all but pulped marrow of the bone leaking through portions of the skin makes this moment surreal. Because from a distance, it looks as if Hestia is taking out garbage. But from a distance, it's not the same thing as standing within 10 feet of the shelter with the remains of a formerly living person crunched and folded into a cube. How are you going to get that mass into the building? How are you going to make your way in? There are several ways in, of course. You can go through the parking structure into the shelter. You can go around the northeast side of the building until you find the hidden access into the ramp leading down into the morgue. Or you can walk through the front door.
I take it Hess wouldn't be able to move full speed with this body if she was to go through the front.
Would you like to?
I mean, shortest distance is a straight line most of the time.
Correct.
But the trauma that's going to cause if I run through the building with a crunched body.
You can cover it with a blanket.
Do we happen to have a blanket outside?
No.
Give me your suit jacket.
Lucy will take off the suit jacket and hand it to her.
Well, she's gonna drape it over the body and then book for the front door. Run interference, and she's gonna go.
As Lucio follows behind, anyone who asks him what's going on, if that does happen, Lucio will say, well, Hestia is very excited. She just found some Halloween decorations on sale, and she's trying to find a place to store them for when the season comes.
As you take time, as Hestia moves with an alacrity clearly not of this world, clearly not of the world that anyone who has not altered or fractured their mind beyond repair could ever think is normal. You realize that's what caused the awe, the oh shit, the what the fuck? Not the mask loosely covered by your suit jacket, because as quickly as Hestia is moving, the scent only hits once she's farther away than most people think is possible. The speed in her movements is 100% unearthly. And this, combined with the rumor from those who weren't there and the witnesses of those who were, when Hestia unmasked her true kindred status in the midst of the assault, having leaped to the hood of the car and all but danced a jig with the devil himself in front of them, fangs bared, eyes glazed over with bloodlust. It is a definitive moment. There is no way that those that she passes could ever believe that she is anything save supernatural.
I will also add on to the story that she had 3 espressos before running in here.
As Hestia makes her way through into the building, does she take the body into the shelter haven, down into the morgue to be properly disposed? So she keep it with her. She makes her way through the haven.
We're gonna dispose.
All right. So you move into the office, hands laden, making your way through the hidden door and down into the morgue. As you get downstairs and begin firing up the furnace, knowing that it will take you a few moments for it to get to temperature. And by a few moments, it usually takes just under a half an hour, about 15 to 20 minutes. While that is happening, and Lucio is conversing with a few of the more clearly shocked members, a few clearly shocked clients. As you stand in the doorway of the infirmary, as you stand as a guard between this world and what's happening there, with that energy being offered as sacrifice, as tribute, in a way to find peace for yourself and for the coterie. You hear the voices of Amalia, her smoky, gusted voice. What is going on? Oh my. And Donnell, having been pulled away as well, and Sebastian and a few other members as they gather in the doorway. Well, what are you doing? Get the fire extinguisher! And Sebastian, fumbling and moving quickly, you can hear his youthful stride, and others making way. You hear people running to grab blankets. Beat the fire out! Fire is always a thing that excites man and keeps monsters at bay. And from your distance, it holds your attention, because while everyone else sees a orange and red and yellow fire erupting from your sacrifice, you see ghostly essences rising up towards heaven. You see a slight flickering of auburn hair and a smile that has warmed the hearts of women and men back to the 1800s. You see a weight of love being offered and sacrificed. You see the happy moments of looking forward to Uncle Nash coming for you. You see all of these moments drifting by as if you're watching them play out on a movie-sized screen in front of you. The smoke filled with the spirit of those things being released into the haven, into the ether around you. And hearing that there is every intention by those behind you to put the fire out, is there anything that Miriam is attempting?
I will just close the door.
Alright, Occam's razor it is. Would you be so kind as to go ahead and roll your strength plus brawl with a +2. And while that roll is happening, while Miriam bars the way forward, holding those other members out to keep the sacrifice on track to be completed, as you drive through the city, where do you have Victoria take you, Sophia?
Somewhere safe. There must be more than one haven that I have access to.
You know, that's the funny thing about the Hecata. Not quite as bad as the Ministry, with their various offices spread throughout the city, but very, very close. They have made it a art form, towing the line of being active. In the city. Doesn't take long. It takes far longer than you would have expected. And it's only in it taking a while do you realize that your haven is the preeminent non-Castiglione haven on the north side of Chicago. You're nearly to Maxwell Street before you realize where she's taking you. Little Italy is the area that is just south and slightly west of UIC campus, where many townhomes, many bits of the suburbs have been brought into the city. The townhomes and row homes in the area have been designed so that there's literally a grocery store within walking distance. There's various after school and school programs within walking distances. It is its own neighborhood filled with all of the little touches that make the suburbs homely and the ideal for America within the heart of the city. It is an area that requires a certain income to even move into, but it is one that has a homey, small town vibe all to itself. As you make your way past Maxwell and make that right heading west, you have an idea as to where you're going, and you realize that it is very, very close to Zal's sphere of influence. You also realize that it's the last place that most people would assume someone who had done what you and your coterie did to her tonight. Someone as petty and childish as Zal will clearly lose their mind and strike out or lash back at you. And the last place that she would expect is literally right in her own backyard.
Well, that seems amenable.
As you all pull into the small alleyway leading to the garage to the building, you realize that from a distance the place looks exactly like all of the others nearby. It is that standard mid-range orange brick with the balcony and upper floors above the garage, while facing out onto the street looking towards the lake like all of the other on this block. It is such an innocuous place that you are sure that the families are not the only people that use the semblance of normalcy to their best benefit in the area. And without stretching your senses all that much, you can feel all of the old, all of the souls and the energy flowing through the area from all of the lives that this place has been built upon. The many downtrodden that were forced out, those workers that were killed as sacrifice, and all of the lives this area had before that. Not as quite as potent as your haven, not quite as potent as the shelter, but clearly, much like the rest of the city, a place built upon the bones of the dead. Speaking of the bones of the dead, as Lucio attempts to speak to and attempts to calm down the people who are showing clear signs of shock, clear signs of what the fuck, people that he knows instinctually from his years as a detective will be witnesses. Not just the average Chicagoan who sees everything and witnesses nothing. No, these people will be witnesses because what they saw, what they witnessed, what they viewed sits so out of line with what they believe the world is. Should be some kind of, just go ahead and roll your manipulation and subterfuge or persuasion. Yep, there you go. Can you hear me?
The last few minutes. Yeah, now I hear you.
Okay. So in his attempts to appease the crowd, to change their clear intentions, would you be so kind as to roll either your manipulation or subterfuge or your manipulation persuasion? As you talk to the witnesses that watched the blur that was Hestia move through the door of the shelter, move across the floor, move through the spaces faster than anything living could, faster than anything in the real world was possible.
And hunger is 0 now, correct?
Yes.
I am using willpower. 2 successes.
Indeed. Incredulous though it might be, surprising though the impossibility of it is, you manage to talk the bulk of everyone you speak to off the ledge. No, it wasn't as fast as that. Calm down. Yeah, you know she moves. She's just caffeinated. She just had some espresso. She's had a couple of shots. Relax. It's okay. You've seen what people are like on PCP. I mean, I'm not saying that she does PCP. And your stories grow more fanciful and more fantastical. And strangely enough, the more outside of the pale that you go, the more convincing you are in making them not quite as afraid as they were. Even as you stand here before them, clearly a walking corpse, even as you stand before them, clearly unmasked as someone who at the very minimum is OD'd more than once in the past couple of hours, yet you are somehow able to reach across and be empathetic enough to them. You're able to convince them enough that they begin doubting what they see. You gaslight them enough that they aren't sure that what they saw and witnessed is accurate. And that doubt is more than enough to hide in this moment what they clearly witnessed. And just when you have the crowds, the few faces you've spoken with calm down, you hear the tramping of Sebastian. He tears through to the front desk, snatching up the fire extinguisher, and you hear several people making way. Move out of the way, move. And tramping her feet towards the infirmary. And then you smell it. Smoke.
Lucy is gonna run towards the smoke.
There is a cost of doing business. It's one that the coterie has paid time and time and time again. And as yet again, Hestia is firing up the furnace, and the mechanical whoosh as the igniter lights all of the pilots inside, and the growing warmth shaking off all the cool and cold of this dank, dark morgue is surprisingly familiar enough that it's become the normal. It's been a while, but yet it's so familiar and normal to Hestia that this is, for lack of better words, the way things were always meant to be. It's only now that she realizes exactly what she did to that corpse, what exactly moved through her, that bestial pragmatism to make it manageable. And the fact that knowledge came hard-won from all of the many bodies that they've had to transport. Looking at the ruin of the corpse before her drives home just how far the coterie has come. There was a time where the Tay-tinged tears would flow. There was a time where this would have been a moment of true introspection. She wouldn't have desecrated the corpse as she had. She would have found the identification to at least put their souls to rest. But that went out the window. Something darker has spoken and acted through her. A pragmatism that is, well, beastly.
Scrubbing at her face and just staring into the flames for a minute. She contemplates again, just giving into the monstrousness of everything that she could be. She just thinks about it for a minute and all the things that she's holding on to so hard. Why? Why am I still trying so hard to keep this all balanced, these plates spinning, when it would be so much easier to do otherwise?
Right now, you could head into the shelter, grab one of those clearly still suffering with their disease of addiction, drag them down here, slit their throats, and give their souls over as payment to properly attune to the shelter, to have all of that power at your fingertips.
And that right there is the hardest fight she's going to have because she knows she needs to. She's worried about, again, keeping this all afloat. And the fact that Sophia just rolled out on them and they're having to clean up another mess, and she kept Miriam from getting shot by getting shot herself. And just on and on and on, and it's wearing on her. And the lure of having power, like she saw Sophia have with attaining to the stone, it's just so fucking seductive right now. As she's staring into the flames and the body is burning.
Your motherfucking ass ain't getting ready to jump in there now, is you, motherfucker?
No.
Damn, that'd be a damn thing to see. I hear you guys go up like fireworks, but just poof, poof, poof.
She rolls on Blue and just kind of looks at him through squinted eyes. I was thinking about what you said earlier about what's coming and what we're going to have to do to survive that, actually.
Yeah, well, y'all don't got the balls for that shit. Y'all still ain't learned. Y'all still scrapping around. I'm just hoping y'all at least keep y'all word this time to get me my own place up there. I don't have to be here to watch y'all motherfucker get destroyed.
I just folded that person like a Rubik's Cube. And didn't care till just a second.
Yeah, that's because you didn't think about it. You motherfuckers think too goddamn much.
You know, I keep waiting for the little angel to show up. You're like the devil on my shoulder right now, and I keep waiting for the angel to show up, and they are not.
The fuck are you talking about?
Club them over the head and tie them up so that you can put bad ideas in my head?
What the fuck are you talking about? Don't you know ain't no difference between the angel and the devil? You didn't go to church much, did you? The fuck?
Actually, I was a Catholic up until I died.
Now here's the thing, you're the motherfucking Catholic, so you should know better than most. Now, when exactly during the entirety of the Bible did the devil stop having access to heaven? Yeah, he was kicked out, but the motherfucker came back every time he wanted to. Which means, was he really kicked out? Motherfucker go up and talk to God anytime he wants. When's the last time you talked to God?
I gave up on that the night I killed that innocent lady for no other reason other than my skin was itching.
Sound like that's your problem. You want to be a bigger devil than the devil. Hell, if the devil's talking to God every chance he get, why the fuck ain't you?
Because the way I was raised means that I would be judged. And I'm not ready for the amount of karma and judgment I got coming. I already know it's well beyond what I want right now.
You funny as shit. So let me get this straight. You believe you can't talk to God who sees all, knows all, understands all from the beginning of time to the end of time because you're gonna be judged. And you ain't ready to be judged. Who says you ain't already been judged? Hell, you've been killed once. Who says that you ain't working according to his plan? Everybody tell you God work in mysterious ways. He gives you the chance to fail on your own terms. Even though he knows that you have it in you to do better. That you pick your own path. Who says he don't let you pick your own punishment too? Y'all motherfuckers funny as hell. Knowing that places like the Shadowlands exist, knowing that places like the Deep Umber exist, knowing that there are worlds and places outside of your little understanding of what is now exist, and you still hold on to something so stupid as the last Roman Empire. Y'all motherfuckers funny as shit.
Fair.
Damn, I'm sorry. Old habits die hard. Y'all shit about to go burn down anyway. So, before we go, can you get?
It's about to what now?
Oh yeah, the smoke upstairs, the body that. But anyway,
Oh my fucking god.
and speaking of burning down, speaking of things hitting the fan, as Miriam puts her back against the door and holds it in place, because one of the few places in the entirety of the shelter that don't have its own deadbolt, that doesn't have its own lock to hold itself closed, is the infirmary. And despite her pacifism, despite her inability to trade life to reach her goals, and despite all of her actions that seem on surface to be counterintuitive to being the monster that she is, the pain that has caused her, there's a strength to her that is to be appreciated. Because single-handedly she is holding the door closed as Amalia and Donnell and other members push against it. She's rocked once or twice and nearly loses her place holding the door closed, but she holds it closed. And as the last scream silently drifts up from her sacrifice, and there's nothing but a black scorched stain on the white tiles of the infirmary, it happens. She feels the power. She feels the energy. She feels the energy of the spectrum rocket through her, blasting through her, moving through the door as if it was not actually there. And she can feel the from the other side. She can hear them inhale as that cool breeze of energy races through the living. She's not sure how she knows, but she knows that she is at ground zero. She is at the center of the storm. And she feels it. Just sheer, unadulterated power. And just as Sophia and Victoria settle in, they feel it as well. Not as strong as the stone, not as strong as being near her mother's center of power, not as strong as the boundaries between the cities, but definitely something that feels as if there is the ghost of an elephant walking over her grave.
Well, that's not good.
If Sophia and Victoria were alone in that feeling, it'd be bad. But the fact that as Lucio gets closer to the infirmary and the crowd of people outside causes his vitae to run immediately, instantaneously cold, to feel as if something is crawling over his skin, its tongue sliding into places where no tongue should be, makes it worse. And as Hestia in the morgue says, "Oh shit," and feels it as it hits her, and Blue smirks, because old habits really do die hard. He could have said something from the very beginning, but was more concerned about his own self, more concerned about his continued existence, more selfishly focused on being the distraction that he has always been. It is so much worse. You can't have your cake and eat it too. And while that's a transliteration of a phrase, carried down through time, it means the opposite of what it was intended to. You can't eat your cake and have it too. But in this case, some things attempt to do just that. Because in that sacrifice, in that attempt at attuning, there was a release, an unbounding, an unmooring of things, giving the surge and the sacrifice of some energies. And it is now free. It now has the opportunity to enjoy the skin lands as best as it can. And with that unknown cold dread sitting there in the heart of each of the coterie members, with our good friend Mr. Gabriel, better known as Al to his friends, rising, a panicked look on his face as Arsenio nearly crashes, with the energies rocketing across him. And in Hyde Park, where the region of regions, where Sabo is laying out the plans between himself and Hugo, and he pauses, feeling that tendril of death crawl up his spine. Everyone knows that something has happened. Everyone knows that something has changed. Everyone knows without understanding that they feel as if there has been a prison break. The rules are the rules for a reason, and while there's an exception to every rule, there's a rule to every exception. There is always a cost to do business. And just because you understand that cost doesn't always mean you understand or know the value. And as the cops say, there's no coincidences. Everything comes up as 1 + 1 eventually. And with that understanding and with that power vibrating through each and every member of the coterie and touching those loosely affiliated with them, I'd like to thank you all for a lovely episode. I look forward to seeing you guys next week. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone.
Night all.
Well, shit.